Welcome everybody to another edition of our Overland build on our Toyota Sequoia. You might notice some noise in the background. That's my generator. It's also like 44 degrees outside because we're having our first winter storm here in San Diego, California. But anyways, today what we're doing with light provided underneath a carport is we are revitalizing my rack. I did a prototype, which I'll show you in a second, and installing these guys. So these is gonna be my shelving unit. You twist, it opens, it can lock, and well, yeah, it's gonna be able to hold everything and act as a table as well. So that's gonna go in here, but currently these are 3 inches too tall. So all I have to do, and I'll go over the step-by-step details too, is I have to flip over my L brackets to be able to lower this guy, which will still allow clearance and allow me to fill up the generator with fuel. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Don't mind the extra noise. Hopefully it's not too bad for audio. And let me take this apart and show you guys the step-by-step process of installing in all the things you need. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my L brackets because they were sticking out a little bit. I just don't want anything to catch on them. So I'm gonna cut off the excess material first. Mine already came with holes, so I'm reusing these. This is just some scrap stuff that we have around the house. But I will say, for the things that I have purchased either currently or in the past that I'm reusing, I will put the links down below on where to get them. So L brackets you can get at Home Depot and stuff like that, and you can make your own holes. But what I liked about these was the design that I created or figured out was this is how I'm mounting them in. So I've got my M6 by 1.0 screw or bolt, whatever you want to call that, and it is, I want to say 50 millimeters in length. Then I've got a nice fat washer, and then I've got my spacer or shim, and this guy fits perfectly in these holes to create a nice sandwich space, so there's no rattling or anything with my prototype that I developed. And now I'm going to be using that same method to put it in. Okay, hopefully you guys can see what's going on. I turned the generator off, so light is a little less than optimal right now. But using the pre-existing holes that hold in the panels, so there's 2 of these on each side. This is the rearmost. I'm going to put my spacer with bolt and washer right on in. And again, there's enough thread on here where I feel comfortable that it's going to go through nicely and have a good hold there. The other thing too, I cut this so that way there would be nothing sticking out to catch anything. And then if you guys also saw, I cleaned up the edges with the cutoff tool as well, or grinder as I like to call it. So I'm gonna have that tight enough where I can still move it. I'm gonna get the other side on now, and then once I figure out the level of this, I will tighten it down. So resting my aluminum tubing all the way over. Again, this is again something else we had laying around the house. And if you're wondering why we have so much metal scrap, is my dad is a welder by trade, so he has a lot of extra metal to play with. But this looks pretty common actually. I'm pretty sure you could find this at any hardware store where you could slide in the tightening fastener and then put your nut on the other side or bolt. So from there I'm going to slowly remove this so nothing moves, and now I'm going to tighten those. Now to show you how these works, it could be one of 2 ways. One, you can have the proper slip-in joints that slide right in, and then you get your nut and you would screw that on. The other way is you find the exact size that fits in the channel nice and tightly, so that way you can tighten and loosen, and that's just your normal bolt. And then I'm using a hex on the outside. So I got a couple of both because ran out of these guys, but these work just as fine for tightening up. And you just got to make sure the dimensions of the nut is perfect, and that may vary on what unit you're using. So again, bucket of bolts, trying which size fits. Once you figure out, go to the store and buy a whole bunch of them. All right, so these side pieces are nice and in right now. So what I'm gonna do, I'm also gonna get some self-tapping screws and go into the plastic on all 4 sides just to give it a little resistance to bending down. I am going to mount everything first and then decide whether or not I need to use these guys, as that's gonna be a little bit of extra work. But also make sure you clean your windows before you do this, because you're not really gonna have access to those after everything is done. So I'll show you the next step with using these. These came off of my Toyota Tacoma from 2017, and these are the bed rails. So with the dimensions that I'm using, these fit literally perfectly in there. And again, link will be down in the description below if you wanted to use the same setup, or you can make your own railings. What I like about them is, 1, they're super lightweight being aluminum. 2, they've got all these channels for mounting points. So when installing the bed rack, I find that it's easier to slide in the screw and then put the bolts in together beforehand and be able to slide it down versus trying to see, they're really tight. So this method does work pretty well versus trying to put it all on while the system's up there. And I'm going to show you why right now. I'm going to put on the first rack and more or less get it into place. There we go. So when doing this, what I find works really nicely is these have slots on the sides of them. So I just have to slightly make these a little wider than what you see. And then also, because it's extremely tight, I just gotta push it in a little bit. There we go. To get it to where I need to. Now, I need to go a little bit more. There we are. And I want to slide it forward into this first channel. I don't want to block the camera, but that just looks like what's happening. I guess I'll do this side first, if things cooperate. And you can loosen it up a little bit if need to, but if it comes out, you're going to want to put that back in and slide it over. The washer does make it a little trickier, and gloves do too, because I'm gripping the glove and not the washer like I want. There we go. Now, the first time I did this was a lot easier because I wasn't doing it with camera. But if you get it roughly where you want, you could do that. And then that. So that's one. We're going to repeat it on all 4, and then I'm going to adjust this where I need to have it. So the first one is in, and now I'm going to do the same thing with our second rack now. 1, 2. Now this one's going to be as close to me as possible, or towards the front of the doors. Crash. Boom. Bang. Okay. So the way I put this in is coming up to the window first to clear, then I level it out and get it roughly into place. So there's 1. Let's slide this over. 2. Now let's get the other side. See how easy that was? So, what you could see is sometimes when you start to tighten it, it wants to rotate and move out of the way. So, that was... I'm gonna leave that there, and we're gonna do the other one first then. So if you see that it is rotating, that will happen sometimes. But with enough persistence, it will lock itself in place with friction. making sure that stays. Come on, you. There we go. So this is what I'm going for the rear. It's going to be right at the very edge. It clears the top when I open and close the cabinet, and I'm actually able to make it dead center. The second cabinet is going to be much larger. This one is going to be dedicated for my microfibers to be right on in here, and then it's going to dual act as like a miniature table. Still allows me to access my fueler cap and fill that up for the generator. Still allows me to get to my little tools in here, and then it's balanced right now. The second one, it's going to be mounted along this, and then I'm going to bolt them together. So the ideal with that, we'll see how that goes, because I've got a nice curvature there, which is probably for the sunroof. So yeah, I'm going to have to pull the second one out and test that guy out too. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill pilot holes in the bottom of this guy, and then the larger hole for the bolts to go through. Now let's vacuum up the mess. Alright, so for this process, the door is going to have to be open. I am going to move it over. So to open the door, there is a key inside, which I haven't added or undid yet. And you twist, and it opens up just like that. So ironically, when I do that, it balances pretty well because it's only sitting on this one. So when I tie the two cabinets together, they're actually going to add additional support. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop my mini bolts right on through, and yeah, she will be bolted in, and then I got to do the second one and then drill through the cabinet and then vacuum everything out meticulously and wipe it down, because I want no metal shavings in here whatsoever, especially because they're going to be holding my detailing supplies. All right, so she is in now. She closes. She's a little wobbly because, again, it's only being supported right now off this first one. Once I screw it into the second one in the back, and that's mounted, both are going to be very, very secure. Worst case scenario is I actually make the L brackets from there go across. So this is why it's all testing and seeing. You guys do not need to see me put in bolts, because I assume most people know how to put in nuts and bolts. So you can also see underneath what's going on under there. Hopefully it's coming out so you guys could actually see. I did put a decent amount. I think it's 10 total. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the other one in same way, is bottom first, and then bolt it in together. So what I'm doing right now is I am drilling my holes to connect the two containers. So I did 3 along the top, and now I'm gonna do 3 kind of middle. All right, let's show you our quote-unquote finished product. There's still a couple small things I want to do, so I'm not gonna completely load them up today. I just threw in my microfibers, as you'll see, and I'll tell you the things that I wanna do after seeing how it's lined up. So let's take a look. So right now, we are mounted just by the 4 tabs. I am going to put some self-tapping screws into these ones. Will be easy. That one might be a little tricky where I have to do it by hand with a ratchet. But what I also want to do with these brackets is come out, instead of downwards, I want to come out and actually connect to the cabinets. That one's going to be the easiest to make a nice L bracket. This one's going to have to be like a U bracket. But essentially with them bolted together, they are extremely sturdy. So shaking the thing, there's very minimal flex. Open, you turn. And currently right now, these are where all my microfibers are. It'll be a little bit more organized, but for right now, time constraints, I just kind of chucked them in their bags. So let's check out the front though. So this one is gonna be a little trickier to open because there are 2 tabs. However, I can still reach them from one side, and it's gonna also act as like a table to lay things out. So this one I want specifically for my Rupe's machines, my polishing pads, and my chemicals that I use for paint corrections and things like that. And this one doesn't get opened as much, and when it does get open, it's gonna stay open. For example, when I get to the shop, I could take everything out, lay it up here, and it's still pretty strong. But as you can see, when this is out and I start tugging a little bit, there is a little flex, and that's why I want to add a nice L bracket to that side and over here to this side to act as additional support. So that's going to be next week's project, just to tidy that up a little bit. But I'm very pleased with how they are up and out of the way, and I'm able to use the whole vertical system. So another question that's gonna get asked is, well, how are you gonna see behind you? Because obviously this is blocking my perspective and point of view. So one of the things I am going to be researching and looking up before I purchase it is a rear view camera through the mirror system that I can have actively on all the time. So when I'm driving and I look up, it's like I have a rear view mirror, except for it's a camera. So that's going to be the next thing, which will probably have to involve taking all this down so I can wire through the roof. We'll see how I end up doing it, but that's a next project for next time. And next time I see you guys, I am going to be adding some content on previous videos that I thought kind of went obsolete. For example, my Ranchero video, I'm gonna start uploading some continued videos on that. I kind of stopped because I initially noticed there were no views, and now I've noticed a surge in views with that. So I'm gonna continue that. I still have some videos archived that I can upload, so you guys will probably see that upcoming next, as well as the Volvo. So a nice mixture of 3 vehicles being involved. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in.